Good evening, everyone. It's now 7:16, and we apologize. Our work session ran over just a bit, and it is to be continued. So I hereby call this meeting of the Board of Education of the Nordonia Hills City School District to order. This is a typical meeting of the Nordonia Hills City Schools Board of Education. It's a meeting in public, but not a public meeting. There will be an opportunity for public participation in the open forum section of the meeting a little bit later. All speakers should have already signed in and will be called to the podium at the appropriate time. If you are uncomfortable speaking during an open forum, comments and questions may always be submitted to the board and administration through email or phone calls. Mr. Brown, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kearney.
Here.
Mr. Larmer.
Here.
Mrs. McKinley.
Here.
Mr. Tidmore.
Here.
Ms. Bonich.
Here.
All board members present.
Great. Can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
I will second.
Mr. Kearney.
Yes.
Mr. Larmer.
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley.
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore.
Yes.
Ms. Bonich.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, well, our regulars at board meetings will think that, hey, what's weird? You guys forgot the Pledge of Allegiance. And as I talked to you about in the board update, I'm really happy that Carol Tonsing is here to present what they do over at Lee Eaton today. I used to work in a school district where it was students that would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance at every meeting. And I thought this is a great time to make that transition organically, because Carol is going to talk about this. And then what my hope is that for board meetings going on, we'll have our student groups who are being honored here or presenting here lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So it'll be delayed just one item, but with all that said, Carol Tonsing from Lee.
Hi, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think that's one of the best things that I know happens to start our day at Lee is that it always starts with the student voice, our morning announcers, and with our pledge. So this year we changed it up a little bit and we started to extend the offer to our military families that are currently in service or in reserves, and they are the ones who come and help us with our Pledge of Allegiance. So tonight we are here with a group of students. You guys want to come on up and stand next to me? And we've kind of dedicated a focus, awesome job, Garrett. We've dedicated a focus on creating a supportive culture for our military families within the Lee Eaton family. And we're pretty excited as each morning we have our students do the pledge. This past week we had Mr. Morales and his son Ruben. They did the pledge for us, and it was a very moving experience because I was super thrilled to have them there in the building. And when I sat back and watched Ruben and his dad approach the mic, right? There's the anticipation of a kid who gets on the speaker, that's exciting. But when he got up there, he literally, the look of admiration and pride in his dad as he approached that mic was extremely touching. I actually had to do one of these, So, super excited to announce, and here we have Evie Lina, we have Garrett Urbanowitz, we have Riley and Robert Cummings, and we have Alex Wooten with us tonight. Some of the other families were unable to attend. Are you guys ready? All right, let me start. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's usually followed by, have a great day, Lee Eaton.
First of all, kids, thank you so much for being here. It means a ton, and you just started a brand new tradition, and we're happy that you've done that. Families, thank you for your service to our country. The work you do is heroic, and we couldn't be more grateful for all that you do on behalf of us as Americans. So thank you very much. You are absolutely welcome to stick around for the rest of the board meeting, but you're also welcome to, if you have to go on. But actually, I would really love for you to stay at least for one more section. So we're going to honor some other kids, and it's going to be great. So maybe I spoke too soon. College board recognition. High school principal Louise Taringo is going to recognize some fantastic scholars.
Okay, good evening. I have three special guests with us tonight. I'd like to ask if they can come forward, and then I'll tell you a little bit about them. First, we have Michaela Jeffro, Olivia Liepert, and Jonathan Mann. So let me see, Jonathan. Okay, stand over here now. I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to brag a little bit, okay? All right, so it had to be about September 10th or so. We received an email from the College Board and said, congratulations, at least one student at your school has been selected by the College Board for this award. Your students earned this recognition because of their academic achievements in school and outstanding performance on the PSAT exam. They've accomplished these milestones during an immensely demanding period of their high school career. We couldn't be more delighted to share this great news with you. The following students have been awarded this recognition honor. And then it lists the three, Jonathan Madden, Michaela Jeffro, Olivia Liepert. So I thought, what does it take to get this cool award? What does it mean? Well, in the fall of 2021, our juniors and 10th graders as well, so 11th and 12th graders, sat for the PSAT. Over 2 million students took the PSAT on National Assessment Day last October. So we are so proud of these students because they qualified in the top 25th percentile in the nation of the 2 million students. We've awarded them from the high school an academic letter of excellence. That means they'll have a chenille letter for this honor. And sometimes we do forget that through all that we've been through in the last few years, there are students that just grind and they have that grit. And this is just a prime example of that. We thank their parents for being here this evening, and thank you for sharing your lovely students with us. We are honored, and we are just so impressed to go through what they went through and to score such a high score. We wish you luck in your college endeavors and to see what the future brings for you. Okay? And I know that
Really glad that they'll come up with this very thing. Thank you. Congratulations, ladies. We're so proud of you. One more presentation from a community member. Karen Byers is here. You know, Karen does just about everything in the district, and today she's here to talk about the Fill the Bus campaign.
Good evening. Yes, I'm Karen Byers, and I'm the president of the Building Boosters of Nordonia Hills, and I'm also the president of the high school PTSA. It's fall, it's football season, and it's Fill the Bus time. So the Nordonia Hills High School PTSA, along with Building Boosters of Nordonia Hills, will be hosting the 8th annual Fill the Bus campaign this year to benefit the Emergency Assistance Center. We've collected over 75,000 pounds of food so far for the Emergency Assistance Center since we started this program. We ask for the community's support to help us fill a bus with non-perishable food items. The need is always there. Please consider participating in this very important food drive. Please bring unexpired, non-perishable food items to donate. Each building is sponsoring their own activities for Fill the Bus. At Rushwood, they will be hosting a fall festival. At the middle school, they have contests between the teams in order to earn points towards the Spirit Shield, so they kind of pit them against each other in order to get more for the Emergency Assistance Center. And at the high school, this year we've been got the Student Rotary, which is advised by Stephanie York, to take on the task of collecting donations and providing incentives for the students in order to see how much can be collected based on those classes also. The Twinsburg City School District, Stringo might remember when we first started this, she was there. They've agreed to join us again in this endeavor, and they're going to work to fill their school bus with donations from their students, their schools, and their community. Collection bins are going to be placed at all the schools in both districts between October 3rd and October 21st. The following businesses in the community are going to be drop-off sites. So we have them in both communities. In Nordonia, there's going to be the Nordonia Ministerium. And in case you wondered, what does that mean? That's the different churches. So you can go to most of the churches in Nordonia, and they will have a collection bin there. Dreyer Physical Therapy, the Goddard School, Kinder Care, and they have a little bit of a rivalry going on between the preschools to see how well they can do with each other. And the Nordonia Hills branch of the Akron Summit County Library. In Twinsburg, you can drop off at the Twinsburg Public Library, the Goddard School over there, and the Twinsburg Ministerian churches. Students, staff, and two communities are asked to leave non-perishable food items in any of the collection bins in any of these locations. In 2021, this food drive collected 16,600 pounds. We're shooting for 20,000 pounds. If you want to know how much is that an item is a pound, canned goods, 1 pound. At a time when it seems like we are continually faced with tough decisions on where to put our hard-earned treasures, please support this food drive because you're supporting those in your community. If you have any questions about this food drive, what we're doing, or how we do it, I'm happy to answer your questions after the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. And our last communication today, Casey Wright is here, and he's going to speak with Tim Delvecchio, who you guys just met, about the recent safety inspection that we went through. Of course, this is in an open public meeting, so you can't give the details that were given to the board in executive session. Casey?
Dr. Clark, Mr. Brown, members of the board, thank you so much for, I really apologize, we took most of your last meeting to meet with Tim Delvecchio. Interesting enough, safety has been at the forefront of what Nordonia's done for a long time, and we've had a long relationship with them. But this year we have an increased focus, and for lots of reasons out there. Certainly, what's going around the country has definitely focused us. Also, we have a great community with great parents that have really focused us into doing some great things, and we've accomplished some wonderful things. One of those recommendations was doing a safety audit. What we wanted to do was look at all of our buildings to find out a working document of what we do well, but also things that we can improve on. And as I met in Columbus at a national or state conference about what a safety audit would be, I heard this name come up over and over again. And it was, you got to meet with Tim Delvecchio. And so when I got back to Cleveland, I looked up Tim and started looking up his background and see if he would be interested in doing a safety audit for Nordonia. And here, let me tell you a little about Tim, because he's shy, he doesn't share this, but I really think it's important that people know. He spent over 50 years in service on safety. First 30 of them, he was the commander of the state highway patrol here in Cleveland district. I thought it was interesting, he was responsible for the major crimes investigation unit, but also anytime a dignitary came to Cleveland, whether it be governor, sitting presidents, presidential candidates, certainly we had lots of debates up here. Tim was in charge of that security. So in there too. After retirement, where most people after 30 years will sit back, he did not sit back. He took that talent overseas, and he spent time working with international leaders in the United Nations. He worked in Kosovo, Vienna, Albania, and Jordan. After that, 15 years of that, he's still not done. He joined the Ohio Department of Homeland Security. And what he decided is he wanted to help schools. So what he did is he worked with over 1,000 schools to help them write emergency management plans and also provide training to superintendents and principals how to best implement those plans in their schools. I say all that to say thank you to Tim. It's an extremely impressive human being that we have with us. And Tim, you can come up a little bit. He spent the last hour with our board. He wrote a 30-page document that I wish I could share with you, but I can't because it has all of our vulnerabilities in that 30-page document. But also gives us some great direction. And what Tim will tell you is we do a lot of things exceptionally well. But even organizations as large as us have some goals to work on. And so Tim outlined those goals, outlined the goals to the board, and I always sit down with each principal to outline those goals for each principal. So Tim, you can share a little bit about your findings.
Well, thanks for inviting me. This is way past my bedtime. Things are references to my age. But yeah, this was a labor of love. You know, I have grandchildren go to school. So, I'm very much into this, and I raised my family in Chardon, and now I live in Jackson Township, and that's where we had 2 school shootings, so this stuff kind of follows me around. I wish I didn't have to say that, but, yeah, it's a pleasure to get asked to do these kind of assessments. We've done about, I'd say about 70 of them now in Northeast Ohio, and you get a pretty good nose about how school districts are doing, and I want to reassure everybody, you're definitely in my platinum club. They do it right here. Back when I worked for the UN, we had a saying that in order to get anything done, you have to have the political will, and you have to have the money. Well, you definitely have the political will here. These folks are very much on board with promoting school safety and saying that things get done in the proper way. But we need the money. All right. I hear we have a levy coming up here in November, so that would help. And I know the staff is working very hard here to get some grants from the state of Ohio, and I can't thank man enough because this is an ordeal. I think you have to be fluent in Chinese to apply for these grants. It's not easy. But yeah, I think one of the things that really impressed me about your school district is that you have 4 different police departments that have jurisdiction in the school district, and everybody gets along and they work together and they like each other. I was the post commander in Cleveland, and I had 54 subwards, and I don't think anybody ever talked to anybody when I was there. So whatever you're doing down here, keep doing it, because you found the cake recipe. Well done, folks. It's excellent. And it looks like we're going to have SROs in our schools most of the time. And I think this is a critical factor for improving school safety. You can buy a lot of the security features, but if somebody's propping open a door, what does it matter? Right? So we have a lot of staff that are trained in this now, and it's not going to happen here. And we're going to have SROs checking and making sure your children are safe. Can I make another comment? Pledge of Allegiance. The pledge was written in my hometown of Rome, New York, so I have a special affection for it. It was written by the Reverend Francis Bellamy, who was a Baptist preacher, and he was kind of an amateur writer, and he used to write inspirational articles for a boys' magazine. And one of his contributions was the pledge. And it's not surprising that he wrote it, because as he looked out of his office window, he was looking at an old Revolutionary War battlefield where the American flag was first flown in battle before an enemy. And it was kind of an up yours thing, because a writer from Massachusetts had brought a newspaper article about this new American flag that Congress had approved. So a woman gave up her red petticoat for the red stripes. A common soldier gave up his white shirt for the white stripes. And an officer gave up his blue officer's jacket for the field blue. And they raised it. And of course, the Iroquois Indians and the British said, what the hell is that? But now, here we are today. So thank you for saying the pledge. I think you're going to start a great tradition here. Have I done my 5 minutes? Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Can you give the brief summary that we are able to share about some of those things that we need to work on?
Yes. So one of the things is I asked him to write a one-page summary. And the reason I want a one-page summary is, although the security document we can't release for obvious reasons, he does make some findings that I think are worthwhile to be public. And so I will address some of this. In his opening lines, he talks about the age of our building. He hinted at that a little bit, that some of our buildings are somewhere between 60 and 90 years old. And the point he makes in that is, when our buildings were built, safety was not at the forefront. They were working on something completely different. The ones he talked about was vestibules. When you walk into a building, it was very common in the 60s that you wanted parents and community members to walk in the building and see this big open spot where they would just walk in. We realize now that walking right into a building, whether you're going to the office or wherever you're going is probably not the safest way to do that. So his number one finding was certainly look at the building structure that you have. Vestibules are a good example, and see what you can do to make those more contained. Other things he said is, a couple things is doors. Doors are a unique problem for Nordonia for two reasons. One is the quantity of doors that were built within our school. When these things were built, fire code was at the forefront, and so they wanted the more doors you could get, the better it could be. And what that means now is as the doors start to age, 20 and 25 years, there'll be constant maintenance. And so it'll be a priority for us to make sure that all our doors are kept up to date, but not only the doors, the hinges, the latches, and everything.
If I can just add something here. I go into a building and it's older than me, we check every door. And our doors are secure here, but I think we're kind of nearing the end of life. So it's something we need to have in our shopping list.
He did mention the fact that we do have a huge advantage here. We live in some great cities who really have gone above and beyond to kind of help us and make a safe environment for our kids here. And I would be amiss, and I think Tim said this too, that we don't thank them for their role in keeping us safe. We are ALICE trained. He talked a little bit about the importance of what we've learned about safety training and giving people options. He did commend us for having ALICE trained and ALICE trained staff. And this is true, we have a safety crisis committee that meets 4 times a year. And it actually, about a decade ago, maybe a little longer than that, was the model for what the state wanted school districts to have. To bring all these agencies together, along with counselors and psychologists, all the people in one room to build these plans. And Nordonia was the model for that.
I'll just jump in here real quick. I was with Homeland Security, and the previous business manager invited me to the safety committee. I really didn't want to go, but I thought, well, I better. So I'm glad I did, because first of all, I never heard of such a thing. But the amazing thing was that it worked. There was all this great sharing of information and good practices. I went back to Columbus and I wrote a report about you guys. And the next thing you know, this is becoming the model for the rest of the state. So Nordonia leads the way.
And the last thing that this document is a little bit over 30 pages long, with each building having between 8 and 10 recommendations to it. But one of the last things he talks about is we do have a pretty significant emergency operation plan. It's been approved by the Ohio Homeland Security 3 different times. In 2016, it's been approved. In 2019, it's approved. It's due this November to be resubmitted. But with Tim's help and the hard work of our principals who worked really hard on this, we actually submitted it before school started, and it has been approved by Ohio Department of Homeland Security. It was important that we got ahead of the curve to make sure we were approved. But I do want to publicly thank Tim for your hard work. He gave us a working document. I shared with the board his recommendations. Our plan is this. We want to accomplish as many of those things in this document that we can. So next year when I invite him back, we can look at that document again and go, okay, this is what we've accomplished. What are our next steps to keep our kids safe? And that will be a working document that we continue on. So thank you.
Thanks, Tim and Casey. Appreciate it. That concludes communications. Again, everybody's welcome to stick around as long as you want.
Alright, we've hit that portion of our meeting where we are here for open forum. Although the public has the right to attend board meetings, it has no inherent right to participate in the deliberations of the board without its consent. Speakers may offer such objective criticisms of the board, of the school operations and programs that concern them. But in public session, the board has the right to request that complaints about school personnel or against any person connected with the school system be directed to the appropriate administrator. The time on the wall will provide 5 minutes for each speaker. Do we have anyone tonight?
Do not have any.
So I did all that for nothing?
We should have told you first.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. So you know my spiel. It just carries over month to month. So you'll hear it every week. All right. So that puts us at reports. And Mr. Burrows, would you like to go first?
Thank you. I'm Jim Barrows, the Nordonia's representative to the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, member of their school board. It's my September report. Mr. Brown, Dr. Clark, Madam President, members of the school board. Start off with a brief history of the last 3 years student enrollment at the Career Center. So, starting with the school year 2021, Nordonia had 131 students enrolled at the Career Center, represents 17% of the total enrollment at that time, 780 students. Garfield Heights had the highest enrollment at 186, and Independence School had the lowest at 30 students. For those that are not familiar with the Career Center, there are 8 school districts represented at the Career Center. In school year 21-22, Nordonia had 151 students, which was about 19% of total enrollment of 771. Garfield Heights again had the highest enrollment at 144, and Independence had the lowest enrollment at 39. And for this current school year, Nordonia has 163 students enrolled, which again is 19% of a total enrollment of 879. Garfield Heights also had the highest enrollment at 186, and Independence again was the lowest at 55 students. So much for statistical. Next point is the Career Center will host College Night on Thursday, October 6th from 6 to 7:30. The event is sponsored by the Cuyahoga Valley College Night Consortium. It is in coordination with the Ohio Association for College Admissions Counseling. We invite all those who are interested in connecting with various colleges and universities, technical centers, and military academies to attend. A financial aid presentation by Kent State University will be available to attendees as well. The event will be in person at the Career Center. Currently, we have 88 institutions registered to attend and participate in this event. On Monday, September 12th, our high school fire and EMS Academy students honored and remember all of those that died and those who were affected by the tragic events that changed our country forever on September 11th, 2001. Our thanks to the Fire and EMS Academy students, along with their instructor, Mark Daly, for commemorating this time in such a respectful way. On Thursday, September 7th, the high school staff welcomed students and parents at our annual open house. Many attended and visited program areas, had the opportunity to meet with their students, or their students' program instructor, the academic teachers, guidance counselors, and administrators. Parents were also able to visit their students' program areas and labs, as well as see the various projects that students are currently working on. Teachers had the chance to explain to students what will occur in their child's program this year and what the expectations for the program entail. We thank all the parents and students who came out to the high school open house. It was a great turnout. And finally, last but not least, our next Board of Education meeting will be this Thursday at the Career Center, beginning at 6:30. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any board reports? We can start down at the end, Mr. Tidmore.
I just wanted to remind the community as a whole that we will be hosting our annual Unity Week, the week of October 24th through the 28th. We look forward to a week-long district-wide event, so please stay tuned. All that information will be passed out at the school level, and not a board report, but or a committee report. But I do want to take the opportunity just to take a moment to bask in the success of the district. And can we just give a hand clap of congratulations to our district as a whole for achieving 5 stars in 4 out of 5 areas. Because so often we lose sight of some of the great things that are going on because of the things that sometimes we can't always agree on. But I wanted to make sure that we put in the forefront the dynamic work that is being done, and I look forward in expectation, even considering the fact that we tried to navigate our way through a global pandemic And although it kind of feels like we're in some place of normalcy, we don't want to get too comfortable and think that we can rest just yet. But just kudos to Dr. Clark and the team, all of the administrators who are present today, those who are not present, and the teachers who work extremely hard every single day, and our scholars, right? Because without them producing the work and the transfer of the skills, we wouldn't have that success. So kudos to everyone.
On September 14th, we had a finance committee meeting. I'm not going to give a report on that because he's going to talk about that. Last week, we had a safety and security meeting. That was a good meeting. I'm not going to go into more detail. I think Casey and Mr. Delvecchio handled that well. And then just to let everyone know that on October 6th, we are having our special board meeting, Thursday, October 6th, the state of the schools, and we're going to have an open forum.
I have nothing.
Okay, I have two reports. The first one is our FACT committee. The District's Finance Activities Communication Team, also known as FACT Committee, met on September 14th. Dr. Clark was present at this meeting and was able to give the committee a brief introduction of the district's current fee structure. Members discussed doing some comparison work in gathering information on how fees such as student fees and kindergarten tuition look in other comparable districts. In addition, the committee discussed ways in which we can share information with the community. One suggestion was to create a bank of frequently asked questions that the community members can access for more information and clarification on financial issues. The members of FACT also heard a review of our 2020 budget report. Finally, we discussed future meeting dates, and our next meeting is scheduled for November 9th at 6:30. All right, I'm going to switch committees now. This is from the Nordonia Schools Foundation, and then they also met on September 14th. We heard a report from Ann Bruno and Stephanie York. They work with us with Knights Caring for Knights. Last week, 55 bags were provided to families in need. This week, then the following week, almost 70. They decided to change to make it easier for kids to take home the bags by using lighter bags. There's the ones that were less heavy. Also, Reinecker's Bakery continues to donate bread even with the growth of the students in need. And Smucker's donated peanut butter and jelly that we have been able to get. Let's see, there was another, we also discussed mega grants and mini grants that teachers can apply for that the Nordonia Schools Foundation provides for them. I believe they're reviewing those on October 21st. So those will be coming out soon. Okay. Well, related to curriculum, but it wasn't an official curriculum meeting, I was invited, and I felt good to be invited, I'll be honest with you. I was invited to visit science classes at the high school, and Mrs. Coleman invited me, gave me her schedule, said pick a class. And so one of the newest courses at the high school just this year is the biotechnology class. And so I went to one of those, and I was a little excited because my most recent Nordonia grad is a biotech major, and I thought, you know what, I might actually get something that I can contribute to the conversation at home, because that's not my field. And so if you click the first piece, so I went through, and I did this sitting in Sam's Club today waiting on tires to be put on a car, so bear with me. So her lesson was wonderful. The students started with a review of a practice quiz. So in teacher terms, activating prior knowledge. Then they took a quiz that was obviously going to be for her grade book, and so you're looking at formative assessment. What do the kids have because they've got a test coming soon? And then they were given a conversion task, solidifying their student learning with instruction they've already been given, and then the opportunity for using the lab with solutions and gels. And so we're talking about DNA type things. And so you're talking about hands-on, real application of learning. And ladies and gentlemen, that's where we really grow that depth of knowledge and have the ability to retain the information is when they are actively doing. So you're taking the concept and making it real.
So that was exciting. And then, let's see here. So Mrs. Coleman teaches, let me just a second on that one. She teaches 2 sections each day of biotech, and then 2 sections of honors biology and 1 section of forensics, and has study halls and other things going on too. The content I observed today I just thought was amazing, and all of the classes offer a strong hands-on lab experience that naturally provides that deeper learning and higher retention of material that's been taught. And so here's some pictures, and as we were going through, I told you the different classes that Mrs. Coleman teaches. All of those are lab-based classes, and kids sign up for them in droves because you get to do stuff. I mean, it's hands-on, that's what students enjoy. And so if you look at the picture on the right, a table is set up for 3 different types of labs, and there's not a whole lot of room left because you're talking about labs for 3 separate classes. And then you see the lab space there. So imagine this going on, trying to switch from one class to the next. There's equipment, there's materials, and then you've got to put students over there too. So space is now becoming a bit of an issue for Mrs. Coleman. Not just her, and other people in the building as well. So when you look at the current instructional space, it's limiting by dividing the room into, that instructional and then the lab spaces. She really needs a little more lab space to be able to run the type of programming that she's trying to do, because you're also looking, I don't know if you can see down at the end, there's like red pieces hanging, and that's her power source for being able to run certain pieces of equipment. So you have to have your power sources to be able to do those types of things. So I started thinking, in education we talk about flexible learning spaces or collaborative learning spaces or shared learning spaces. And I started thinking, now this is my crude drawing sitting in Sam's Club today, so bear with me. When you think about the amount of room that it takes, imagine a hallway where you've got, in this case, 3 classrooms in a row. And this is literally just trying to make rectangles on a page. But if you have science room A and science room B, with science teachers that are collaborating, the room in the middle could potentially be a shared science lab that is larger. And not to say that this is the way it would have to be done, but as we're looking and the community has to decide on a bond issue, we talk about the needs of students, and we're teaching kids today things that didn't exist when we were kids in school. The biggest science class I took in high school was microbiology, and I love that class. I can still tell you where I sat in that room today. And the things I learned, I still use as that base knowledge for things I do today. The fact that we have a forensic class, we have, our kids are learning, we learned the Putnam Square as a kid. Our kids are making gels with real DNA in them. We didn't do that as kids. And education has changed, and if it has changed that much now, what's it going to look like in another 10 years, another 20 years? There's going to be something being taught that we haven't even thought that we need to put in school yet. So I just got really inspired when I had the opportunity to visit the class today. Thank you so much for inviting me. I loved every minute of it. And it was just a really inspirational thing for me today. And that's all I got.
Well, let's move into the superintendent's recommendations. Item 1, I recommend you approve the consent items listed.
Can I get a motion?
I'll motion. I'll second.
3 things here. The first is approving an out-of-state field trip to Germany for our German students in 2 years. Sounds like a fantastic trip for those kids. Donations from our building boosters. Karen Byers, again, does amazing work with her group, and she's helping out the high school office staff with a toaster oven and TV shelving. And resolution declaring transportation impractical for 2 students, and you've seen those before.
Any questions?
Mr. Kearney?
Yes.
Mr. Larmour?
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore?
Yes.
Ms. Bodich?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 2 is a recommendation to approve contracts with Turnkey Technology for the purchase of security cameras.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
This is paid for through the grant that Casey finalized, we were awarded. It takes a little bit of time to go through the federal procurement process, but we're hopeful that by the end of October, we could have these on site and being installed. But you know how the government works sometimes, we're hopeful though.
Any questions?
Mr. Kearney?
Yes.
Mr. Larmour?
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore?
Yes.
Ms. Bodich?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 3 is a recommendation to approve the resolution for a TIF with Northfield Center Township.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
You may have had the opportunity to read these, this one and the next one. Both of them hold us harmless, so we will not be out any funding.
Any questions?
Mr. Kearney?
Yes.
Mr. Larmour?
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore?
Yes.
Ms. Bodich?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 4 is a recommendation to approve the resolution for the TIF with Macedonia.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Same story, we are held harmless.
Any questions?
Mr. Kearney?
Yes.
Mr. Larmour?
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore?
Yes.
Ms. Bodich?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 5 is a recommendation to approve a memorandum of understanding with Sagamore Hills Township.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
This is for a school resource officer at Rushwood. Again, Casey's been doing a yeoman's work on getting the school resource officers in place. It does take time. It's challenging sometimes to go through the paperwork needed, but this is the first of more that we will be bringing. And again, this is for Rushwood.
I just want to echo that too, especially with all the work that's been done to make it happen. I think it's wonderful and glad to see that it's happening.
Any questions? Comments?
Mr. Kearney?
Yes.
Mr. Larmour?
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore?
Yes.
Ms. Bodich?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 6 is a recommendation to approve the natural gas purchase program with Ohio Schools Council.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
This is an extension through next June that, because of the prices that we've been quoted, will actually end up, by going with this, it'll save us about $90,000 over what we had anticipated we were going to have to spend in natural gas. Good job to Casey for working with the Ohio Schools Council to join this consortium of, how many schools, Kate? 170 schools.
Any comments?
Mr. Kearney?
Yes.
Mr. Larmour?
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore?
Yes.
Ms. Bodich?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 7 is a recommendation to approve a contract with Chris Singleton Speaks.
I'll motion. I'll second.
This is for professional development for our certified staff at the November Professional Development Day. This is paid for out of the Diversifying the Education Professions grant. Chris Singleton talks about topics related to diversity and how you can do anything. Great story of a baseball player who lost his mom tragically in the church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. Very inspirational.
Any questions?
Mr. Kearney?
Yes.
Mr. Larmour?
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore?
Yes.
Ms. Bodich?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 8 is a recommendation to approve the purchase service contracts listed below.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
And you might remember last month, or maybe it was 2 months ago, me talking about how we never used to bring these to the board. Matt is doing a great job of cleaning up some things, and so we bring all these purchase service contracts to the board now for work that folks are doing outside of what they might typically be doing.
Any questions?
No, I think it's great. Julia just graduated from Nordonia a year and a half ago. And it's nice to see her come back and help out and Should on to the next generation with that.
I believe hers is helping with the drama club.
Mr. Kearney,
Yes.
Mr. Larmer,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore,
Yes.
Ms. Spodich,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 9 is a recommendation to approve the authorization to employ a tutor through the Summit Educational Service Center.
All motion.
I'll second.
This is actually a revision. You had approved this already, but the salary change, it's to the tune of about $4,000 based on this teacher's experience. That was recalculated.
Any questions?
Mr. Kearney,
Yes.
Mr. Larmer,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore,
Yes.
Ms. Spodich,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 10 is a recommendation to approve the personnel items listed.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
There's nothing really outstanding in the personnel, other than, I think one thing that I want to point out is that you see Melanie Sagansky, Rushwood fourth grade teacher, she's going to be out on maternity leave, and you see that it's going to take 2 people for us to fill her spot. All I want to point out is that this is indicative of the substitute teacher shortage. 5 years ago, if we had posted a fourth grade long-term sub job, we would have had 50 applicants. Now, it's near impossible to find people that are certified to teach, to the point that, we're piecemealing them. Just indicative of the times we're in.
Any questions? Mr. Brown?
Mr. Kearney,
Yes.
Mr. Larmer,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore,
Yes.
Ms. Spodich,
Yes.
motion carries.
And that concludes my report.
All right,
Mr. Brown?
moving on to the treasurer's recommendations. Item number 1 is a resolution to approve the consent items, and I recommend for approval.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
What we have here are the typical board meeting minutes from the prior month. We have a special meeting minutes of August 29, 2022, and the regular minutes from August 29, 2022. Student activity, purpose, and budget statements that are either new or revised from the previous submission last month. The financial update for the month of August 2022, and a brief federal grant review. Go into the financial statements of where we are as a district through August 2022. Just want to start on the revenue side. We are ended the month of August 2022 at $18.8 million, and that is 1.3% higher than where we were last year at the same time frame. Touch on this ad nauseum in prior meetings, but we'll continue because it's a significant variance. Is you'll notice that our unrestricted state grants and aid and our restricted state grants and aid are showing a significant variance, mainly due to the state funding formula that changed and was not imposed until January of 2022. So until that time, we'll continue to have significant fluctuation or variances on those change columns. So overall revenues are 1.3% higher through August. On the general fund expenditure side, through August, we are showing total expenditures of $8.1 million, and this is 3.1% higher than where we were last year at the same time frame. Again, same reason as last month, the employees' health insurance, premium holiday I spoke about last month, that's driving that significant increase to the tune of 76% over where we were last year. Last year we had the months of July and August as premium holidays, meaning that we weren't charged a premium for our insurance coverages. For this year, only the month of August was a premium holiday, so we're recognizing basically a full month that we didn't have last year. On the other side of things, though, our purchase services, supplies and materials, and capital outlay are all showing significant decreases at this time. Some of it has to do with the timing of when bills get paid between different years, but it is important to note that last year, over the summer months, we had significant repairs to the high school parking lot and roofing project, which we didn't have this year. So that's part of that fluctuation. Overall, our net income is currently at $10.7 million, and our unencumbered, unreserved fund balance through August is just under $19.8 million. Any questions over that? Okay, then we'll just do a quick review on our grants. One of the things I wanted to convey to the board and also to the public is a brief presentation on the number of grants that our district has received, not only in a normal given year, but also over the past 2 years, even 3 years as a result of the COVID pandemic and the investment that the federal government has made in public education. Real quick, I'll go through the types of grants awarded to the district. We have the federal, the state, and local grants. The processes that the district goes through from application to completion, and then really the COVID pandemic grant review since then is the explanation for our substantial increase in grant revenue. On the federal grant side, this is our largest grant category, and as we get into the grant discussion, most of our grants have their own special fund, meaning that they're not included with the general operations of the district. They have their own special fund that we account for separately. So all these funds that I'm talking about are regulated by their own individual fund and can be tracked by that for auditing purposes. So anyway, federal grants are our largest grant category. They're mainly awarded by the U.S. Department of Education and pass through the Ohio Department of Education. And that's done through all the school districts across the state of Ohio. There are smaller federal agencies that provide grants as well. The U.S. Department of Agricultural, that is for our national school lunch and breakfast programs. U.S. Department of Treasury also provides some funding through the K-12 school safety grant. And then also we received a very small, I've never seen this before, but we were able to get a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts and Humanities back in the beginning of the COVID pandemic for our library systems. The way that the district manages these federal grants is all driven through the Ohio Department of Education's online portal. In there, we have to submit lots of different information. Mostly, Mr. Stewart and his office works on providing a lot of this information, but it's a collaborative effort that's done at the administration level to make sure that our information that we provide to ODE is compliant with what they need. So basically, the things that we submit are the definition of the purpose, we establish the budget, and then we provide budget details and other requirements that the state may have for a particular grant. And then before we send everything off, we have to attest to a bunch of assurances that we are meeting those, we can assure to those statements. And then finally, once that's all submitted, the Ohio Department of Education's Department of Grant Management will review the information, and then they'll issue a substantially approved date. And at that point, the district can then incur costs for that grant. So that's just a high-level review of what goes into all these federal grants that we work through at the state level. So a background on how the grants are funded, at least at the federal level. There's two types. There's a reimbursement basis and there's an advanced funding basis. Majority of the grants that we receive are under the reimbursement basis, with the exception of the recently awarded K-12 school safety grant, which is advanced funded. So what that means is we have to, in most instances, we have to spend the money first, submit the necessary paperwork to the Ohio Department of Education, and then they release the funds to us to reimburse us. So that's done throughout the year. We submit monthly financial reports to the Ohio Department of Education to receive PCR, project cash requests. And at the end of each school year, we file a FER, the final expenditure report, and that summarizes the activity and what we spent and making sure that's ready for audit purposes. And then because we receive federal awards, we have to go through an annual federal grants audit called a single audit, and that's conducted by the Ohio State Auditor's Office, and they're actually in our office as we speak, not currently, but during this time of the year, they're in our office working on this audit for last school year. So real quick, I wanted to give you a quick snapshot of where we are and how much our federal grants increased over the past year. FY22 federal expenditures was just over $5.1 million compared to 2021 of 2.3. And the FY21 number is normally in a given year is where we are typically in our federal grants, but because of COVID pandemic related grants, our federal expenditures have increased significantly. We'll get into that in more detail. On the state grant side, it's a much smaller level of grants that we receive from the state, but it is an important component. Those are mainly awarded through the Ohio Department of Education. Our two ones that we significantly receive from the Ohio Department of Education is called the Parent Mentor Project Grant and the K-12 Connectivity Grant. Those are all competitive grants, and we have to apply for them to receive them. Every department within the state has different requirements. So if we're getting a grant from the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, they'll have different requirements than ODE would. But they're all basically funded through a reimbursement basis, as previously discussed. Same type of application and oversight that's done on federal grants from the state level. We have to file information, we have to file budgets, we have to file descriptions of what we're using these funds for, and it has to go through the approval process at the state level before they even give us the ability to spend money. So kind of similar to the federal level. And then even on a smaller scale is our local grants. We're grateful to have a lot of local entities that are willing to support our students and the different activities that go on in our district. To name a few is the Nordonia Schools Foundation. We also receive funds from the Summit County ADM Board and other entities throughout the local community. These are kind of touch and go based off of the entity that's providing the grant. They all have different requirements, and those are established when they award the money. As far as the application process, this is driven more by the staff and their needs as they can come across through their programs or their classrooms. And then we, as the Treasurer's Office, provides oversight in making sure that those funds are accounted and budgeted properly. On the federal grant side of things, as far as the significant increase we had in federal grants is due to the COVID-related grants. As this chart will show, or this page will show, that we have received 10 different federal grants related to the COVID pandemic. And I won't go through all of those, but the big ticket items that we all hear about is ESSER and the ARP ESSER. Those are the two big grants that were funded by the federal government, and they have various, they're like the umbrella, and all those other grants fall under them. So the grand total of all the COVID-related grant funding that the district has received is $4.7 million. It's important to know that each of those grants have what is called a period of availability, and for what that is the federal government establishes a time frame in which the district or the entity can spend money, and so for most of these grants, the period of availability began mid-March of 2020. So at that time, a lot of effort went into determining how those funds were going to be utilized and budgeted for, and over the coming years, how we were going to spend those funds. So it's important to know that we can't spend money that's not within that period of availability. And it might be hard to see up there on that screen, but the big grants that I spoke about provide the period of availability down there, as well as how much we've committed to date for those grants. And you can see ESSER, ARP, which ARP stands for the American Rescue Plan. We've committed 100% of those funds. So we anticipate that funding to be used by the end of this fiscal year. Same with the ESSER ARP State Activity Grant. That's been 100% committed. The ARP IDEA has only been 5% committed, but the Director of Pupil Services is working on identifying areas where we can tap into that. And then also recently the K-12 School Safety Grant, which we just voted on, the board just voted on tonight to spend funds related to that grant. So as of right now, as the slide was created, it was 0% committed, but now we're fully committed based off of your action taken tonight for those cameras.
So you say fully committed, that would be, it's 100% committed?
Yeah.
Okay.
As I stated previously, all of those federal grants that we received through the COVID pandemic all are housed in the ODE's online portal. There's an extensive process that has to go through in submitting that information, having them review the documentation, making sure that all our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed as far as being able to be compliant with the spending requirements. As a result of receiving those funds, there were several steps that we had to take as a district to make sure that we got input from the community. So as a department, Mr. Stewart put out a number of community surveys to be able to get a feeling of what is needed from our community to help with the pandemic at that time. And through that surveys, along with the allowable activities that were identified by the federal government, for ESSER grants, there are 15 allowable activities. Through the surveys and the allowable activities that we can use those funds for, the district identified learning loss activities such as providing additional tutors to students, providing summer school opportunities, providing social and emotional wellness activities. We dedicated a lot of the funding towards our counselors, psychologists, and building interventionists throughout the school district, as well as purchasing a new district-wide curriculum. There was a significant investment in educational technology that was used to help with the virtual or remote learning environment that we were experiencing back at the time, and also to allow for the increase in connectivity so that the students can learn even while they're struggling with whatever situation they may be going through. And then, of course, there was an allocation made for the purchases of supplies to clean and sanitize the facilities and to maintain operations during the pandemic. As I stated previously, all of those grants are pretty much committed except for the ARP IDEA grant. That one will be forthcoming, but for the most part, the majority of the grants will end up being fully committed or spent by the end of this fiscal year. So that's just a high-level overview of our federal grants, what has transpired over the past couple of years because of the COVID pandemic, and what we've done as a district to make sure that we've remained compliant but also fulfilled the needs that those grants were created for. So I'll take any questions if you have any.
I appreciate you putting it all together. I mean, people have heard ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and
Right.
everything. That was a nice synopsis, putting it all together and where those monies are going to. So thank you for that.
Matt, briefly, I have just one quick question. As a board, I mean, what determinations are we making for grant monies? So in other words, for instance, we voted to approve the security camera grant monies, but we're not always necessarily approving every single grant that's being assigned, I guess you could say.
Correct. Yeah.
How is that determined?
I mean, I would say most of those grants are especially in the normal grant year, let's say pandemic out of it, in a normal given grant year, those are done through the consolidated grant process that is created at the state level, and then Mr. Stewart and the administrative team has to construct basically how we're going to spend that money. And as far as the board approving that, that's more of like a standard operating procedure of the district. These are what we can spend it on, and what are the needs of the district, and that's identified through those plans that we submit to ODE. But you don't approve the individual grant, but we are because we're part of the state, we receive those funds.
Free math, but for ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 as a board, we did meet the time Matt Strickland and the other administrative staff to put together a list of what we were allowed to spend the money on. And as a board, we did sit down and go through that all, where we thought the direction of those funds should be spent. So we were very involved. We were definitely involved with ESSER 1 and ESSER 2. A lot of the other stuff, not.
And that was just a clarification, just that we're not always, have our hands in determining how we're spending those monies.
And like Mr. Walker stated, COVID kind of created a whole new element where there's a lot more involvement from the stakeholders and other community members to make sure that the needs that were present at that time were met.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kearney,
Yes.
Mr. Larmer,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore,
Yes.
Ms. Bodich,
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item on my docket is the approval of the fiscal year 2022-2023 appropriation adjustments, and I recommend for approval.
I motion. Second?
I do this occasionally throughout the year based off of events that transpire. These appropriation adjustments, one is we're increasing the general fund appropriation by $350,000, mainly for the purpose of potential obligations of our SROs. That's the main reason of doing that. And then also we made some revisions to our grants. As we just talked about the grant process, they approved our final expenditure reports, and therefore as a result of that, it freed up the money that was not spent from last year, or it was reallocated. So that's what those budget adjustments are for.
Any questions? Mr. Brown?
Okay, Mr. Kearney,
Yes.
Mr. Larmer, Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore,
Yes.
Ms. Spodich.
Yes.
Motion carries. And then finally, I have a resolution to approve an advance repayment, and I recommend for approval.
I'll motion. I'll second.
Just a little background on this one. Back in the June meeting, the board approved an initial advance from the general fund to the Fund 590 to cover expenditures. As I talked about in the grant review, these grants are all funded on a reimbursement basis, so we had to spend the money first and then get reimbursed. But under Ohio law, with a few exceptions, we can't end the fiscal year in a negative. So that grant would have ended in the negative if the general fund didn't advance the funds. So we received the funds subsequently, and now we're repaying that advance.
No, I remember that conversation.
Yep.
Any questions?
Okay, Mr. Kearney,
Yes.
Mr. Larmer,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore,
Yes.
Ms. Spodich.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And that brings us to the end of our meeting tonight. As a reminder to everyone, tomorrow night is the Unity in the Community meeting, which will be held via Zoom at 7 o'clock. If you're not already registered, please feel free to do so. We'd love to see you there. On Thursday, October 6th, Mr. Larmer mentioned this earlier, we will be holding the State of the Schools address, or Dr. Clark will be holding the State of the Schools address, and there will also be an open forum, and it's going to be located at the high school cafeteria. And then finally, our next Board of Education meeting will be Monday, October 17th at 7 o'clock. So we'll make sure we're on time for that one. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Kearney,
Yes.
Mr. Larmer,
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tidmore,
Yes.
Ms. Spodich.
Yes.
Motion carries.
You know what?